Hello there, students. Thank you for being part of this presentation. Today we're looking at United States government, U.S. government, and we're looking at Unit 4, which is Foreign and Domestic Policy, and we're actually focusing on the first tutorial, which is Foreign Policy. Please remember to have a notebook ready in order to take notes as we are moving on through this presentation so that you can better answer the questions. And the objective for this particular lesson is that you will analyze how foreign policy impacts the United States. Let's move on. This is page 10 of the foreign policy tutorial, and let me read the question so you'll know what to answer here. And it says, based on your own understanding and the information in this lesson, why might a sanction against the use of chemical or biological weapons be part of the Geneva Conventions? Again, here you have to be able to provide a solid response, which should be at least a good paragraph. And the answer for this question is basically on the previous pages. Remember, we're on page 10 of this tutorial. You can go back and you can find the answer for this question. Also, you may use internet resources, but if you use internet resources, please do not copy. If you read something, hey, put it in your own words, make it your own work, and make sure you write your answer here. Let's move on. We are now on page 13 of the foreign policy tutorial, and this is the lesson activity, which is international relations. Let's go over the directions here. Read the instructions for this self-check activity, type in response to each question, and check your answers. At the end of this activity, write a brief evaluation about your work. Let's read here the activity part here, part A. See what it says. The phrase human rights appears often in the news and textbooks, but what exactly are human rights? Think about your own knowledge and ideas about human rights, and then list 5 rights you think are human rights. Enter your list in the provided table here and provide a 1 to 2 sentence explanation supporting your choice. So based on your knowledge, based on previous readings, based on anything that you have heard about human rights, just make a list. Give us 5 different things that you think are basic human rights, and then provide the reason as to why you think that is a basic human right. Part B of this activity is saying the following. Read these definitions. Here you go. You have a link. You need to click on that and make sure that you take some notes there. And here you have another link. Make sure you click on that and take some notes. And here you have another one. So you have 3 links here that you need to review in order to answer this question. So it says, read these definitions and purpose of human rights in the international community, and then read this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Use the provided table to list 5 protected international rights from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Include which article of the document describes the human right you discuss. Also provide your thoughts on why each item you list is a human right. So again, similar to the previous activity, part A, you're doing almost the same thing here. You provide the human right. You provide obviously the article that tells you about that human right, and you provide an explanation. Please make sure you provide at least 2 sentences in terms of explanations, and this way your teacher knows exactly what you're doing. Part C here, it says, skim the Universal Declaration of Rights documents again. Write 2 to 3 paragraph response comparing this document with the U.S. Bill of Rights and later amendments. What similarities do these documents have? Include your own. Include 1 or 2 examples of when human rights have been violated in history, and include some of your own stuff here. If you know, for example, your parents went through this war and their human rights were violated, hey, please provide an answer here. But make sure that you go and look at this particular links, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, U.S. Bill of Rights, and later amendments, and provide at least 2 paragraphs. Remember, paragraph have to have at least 5 strong sentences in order to be a paragraph. I've seen some paragraphs that only have 2 sentences, and let me tell you, that's not a paragraph. So please show your teacher that you're familiar with the content, that you did your homework, you went through these links here, and that you are ready and you understand the material. let's move on. We are now on page 16, Foreign Policy Tutorial, and we have another lesson activity. And this is History of U.S. Foreign Policy. And the directions, obviously, read the instructions for the self-check activity, type in response to each question, and check your answers. At the end of the activity, write a brief evaluation of your work. Activity. In this activity, you will trace the U.S. transition from isolationism to intervention across numerous global events. And part A says, based on your own knowledge of what you learned in the tutorial, explain 1 to 2 sentences how U.S. involvement in the Spanish-American War represented a shift from isolationism to intervention. Again, please make sure you provide, like it's telling you right here, in 1 to 2 sentences, you provide an answer here. Make sure that you're thoughtful. And by the way, it's not bad if you actually do more than 2 sentences. You can do a whole paragraph here in order to demonstrate to your teacher that you understand the content that is being presented to you. Part B, based on your own knowledge and what you learned in this lesson, explain in 1 to 2 sentences how U.S. involvement in this case World War II represented a shift from isolationism to intervention. As you recall, the United States during the Great Depression 1930s, it was a country that did not want to be part of any world conflict. But in this case, you need to explain, what changed, what happened, why did the U.S. now become involved in World War II, and how it changed its position from being isolated to being a world player, even after the war. Actually, that's when things actually got really, really interesting for the U.S. because the U.S. actually dominated the world after that. Part C says, based on your own knowledge, and what you learned in this lesson, explain in 1 to 2 sentences how U.S. involvement in Cold War represented a shift from isolationism to intervention. Just like I mentioned to you before, after World War II, it's when the U.S. actually became like the world superpower. So you need to be able to explain here how did that happen. Talk a little bit about the Cold War. Talk a little bit about the events that took place during the Cold War that made the U.S. be extremely proactive around the world. You can also talk about, communism, how the U.S. was able to prevent the spread of communism. And please make sure you provide a thoughtful response here. Do not just throw anything, as we want to see only the best answers from you. Please continue to move on through this tutorial. We have reached the end of this presentation.